Hey everyone, it's Patrick, and welcome to my first blog entry. I am starting a blog all about all things trauma and trauma recovery. I'm lucky enough to have found my life's purpose and passion, and that is helping people heal from trauma and finding lives that are rewarding and joyful for them. So, welcome along for the journey. Again, first blog. Haven't ever done a trauma related, business related blog before, but am doing it now. I really like the concept of just start before you're ready. And, here we go. I don't yet know how to get my blog up onto my website, but this will be up there. Hello from the future. It's me up on my website. It'll be up there eventually once my website developer tells me how to do that. Shout out to Ruby Western. If you want a really cool website, you should definitely hit her up. Get in contact with me if you want her information. And anyway, if we wait our whole lives for things to be perfect before we start them, we're never going to start them. So let's not do that. That goes to, creating our art or starting our businesses or sharing the information we feel we want to share with the world. And so here we go. Today's topic is insomnia. There are a lot of resources out there about good sleep hygiene, and that stuff's really cool and important. I will probably do a blog sometime about good sleep hygiene because it is important to remind ourselves about that and what to do to set ourselves up for the most success possible. It's also really good, a good way to attune with self, to remind ourselves what we need to do to, have the best results for our mental health possible, the best conditions for our mental health possible. But today's entry is about insomnia. What happens when, despite all that good sleep hygiene, despite our best, it still doesn't go well? So, I've struggled with insomnia for as long as I can remember, and I have done a lot of experiments. And here are my tips for you today. So, the best way that I can describe insomnia is like, it's this metaphor, right? It's like, whether or not there are racing thoughts, even if there aren't, it feels like being in a big room with nothing in it except myself, trying to go to sleep, and there are fluorescent lights on the ceiling that are on. Like, you can hear them buzzing, that like crappy fluorescent lighting that's just on. And it's like the light in my head, it's just on. If I could find the off switch, my God, would I find it? But I can't. The light is just on, and I cannot go to sleep. Despite the chamomile tea, despite the Sleepy Bear, my favorite tea, it's not happening. And so, tip number one is don't do this thing to yourself. It's called clock watching, where you just are like, oh man, it's only 7 hours. If I fall asleep now, it'll only be 7 hours. I'm gonna be so tired in the morning. Oh, it's just gonna be 5 hours or 4 hours. Oh, I'm gonna get like an hour of sleep. Like, this is gonna suck. Stop telling yourself that you're gonna fail. Negative thoughts tend to attract more negative thoughts, and what we're talking about here is conditions for sleep. And conditions for sleep means calming the limbic system enough so that we feel safe enough to let go. The ultimate let go, to fall unconscious, right? And it makes sense to me why people with trauma struggle with this. But trauma work doesn't stop in the middle of the night. In fact, sometimes it's just when it's like amping up or rearing its head. And so tip number one is don't clock watch. Don't convince yourself or tell yourself how tomorrow's gonna suck, because if you do, if that's the last thing you hear yourself do the night before, guess what happens when you wake up in the morning? You feel tired no matter how many hours of sleep you got. And the day tends to suck. Don't do that in the morning either. Tip number 2 is it's okay. If and when this happens, if and when you are sleepless, tell yourself it's okay. The world isn't going to end if you have a sleepless night. And the world isn't going to end if you had a sleepless night. So I also want you to wake up the next morning, regardless of whether or not you haven't slept well, and tell yourself, yes, I'm tired, but it's still going to be a good day. You might have to make accommodations, which many people with disabilities have to do, in terms of what you expected to get done that day, but that's okay. Your best is your best, no matter what that to-do list ends up looking like that day. It's okay to amend, rearrange, and accommodate. Also, I guess tip number 3 is, for me, I'm a therapist, and I'm on an outwardly focused and attuned outward all day, every day, on other things, on other people, in and out of my job sometimes. And sometimes what I've learned to do during those moments of sleeplessness at night is to just say to myself, like, this is kind of nice. There's no one who needs anything from me right now. Yeah, it's not ideal timing, but all I have to do is be with me and the quiet and try to enjoy the quiet right now. And I swear to God, once I get with that train of thought, I'm asleep. Again, it's about soothing ourselves, our inner child, our limbic system, the scared parts of us, and saying, like, hey, little buddy, it's okay. I think we're on tip 4. Doesn't matter. Listen to something soothing before bedtime. A lot of us were lucky enough to get read to as kids. Some of us read to ourselves as kids, but listen to something that's going to soothe yourself, your inner child, your wounded self, so that you give your limbic system a fighting chance to let go. For me, I listen a lot to the podcast Nothing Much Happens, which I recommend all the time to my clients. And this is a podcast of bedtime stories written by Catherine Nicolai, who has a very, very soothing voice. Stories wherein nothing much happens in this quaint town of nothing much, and it is a joy to listen to. Most nights, I'm not saying most nights, but many nights I fall asleep before the story's ended. She reads it one time all the way through, and then she reads it a second time a little bit slower, and it's really good work she does. But those nights where the light's just on, I again say to myself, it's okay. And I enjoy those stories. And some people's advice is, if you can't sleep, get up and get a drink or walk around. That's not my advice. My advice is lay still, even if you're not sleeping. And some nights I just lay and I listen to those stories and I enjoy those stories, and that's rest. It's not sleep, but you can really get yourself and train yourself to get in a place of pseudo-sleep or deep rest. And this is mindfulness meditation practice, this sort of thing. So again, go easy on yourself. It's not the end of the world. You can still have a good day. Make accommodations as you deserve. There's no shame in that. And thank you so much for tuning in for my first blog entry. And I can't wait to share more to come. Have a good day, everyone.